Paris. I've just come back from Paris and I must say it was a delightful trip. I arrived Friday morning, spent the next day in Disneyland. Trust me, that was not my idea at all. We came back to Madrid on Monday afternoon, taking full advantage of the glorious Spanish long weekend. The journey there was nice enough. Originally, I wasn't that sure about flying with Ryanair, mostly due to the fact that the airport they use isn't anywhere near Paris, but it was fine in the end. A lot of people complain about Ryanair, but I've only ever had one slight delay in my numerous flights with them. I flew back with Vueling from Charles de Gaulle, and to be honest, it must have taken us about the same time to get to Charles de Gaulle as it did to get from Beauvais to central Paris. Once we had arrived, jumped on the metro, and a saxman started playing Petit Fleur. It made me incredibly happy hearing that version from Sidney Bechet, one-time citizen of Paris. I properly felt like I was in Paris. The metro isn't the cleanest, nor is it the newest, but as a means of transport, it's a splendid tool. It's fast, you hardly ever have to wait more than 2 or 3 minutes for the next train, and also it's pretty cheap. At €1.80 per normal ticket, it's just a bit more expensive than the Madrid Metro. But as I'm a bit young, I was able to buy an all-day ticket for €3 something. It's extremely vast too, plenty of stations and plenty of lines. One issue though is that you do have to walk quite a lot between stations, and there aren't that many escalators. I think I spoke French well enough. Basic stuff, but I was understood. However, understanding them was a bit more difficult, and I'm not that sure the Parisians helped that much. A lot of folk here in Spain had warned me about the Parisian people, about their arrogance, ignorance, and lack of patience, and that they don't like speaking other languages despite being capable. I must say, whenever I needed help, they were helpful. They were charming. One lady at the hotel reception couldn't care less if I didn't understand her, but the others, whether in the street, airport, bars, restaurants, were kind. Sometimes a bit too kind. One young woman asked me where I was from because of my French accent. After I'd said England, her reaction was of amazement, and I didn't quite understand it. She must be quite a fan of England. She said I spoke well, but she was just being polite. It seems strange for me that someone who lives in Paris would have a reaction like that when someone mentions England, although there are quite a few adverts for holidays in England and Scotland around Paris. Paris is a lovely city to walk around. The buildings are like works of art, the gardens are extremely well kept, the trees cut to precision. It is, however, an extortionately expensive place. I went to London last year, but I don't think it was as expensive really. Not to eat and drink anyway. Mostly because I know the pubs. They have the same prices in all England, and the food there is fine. You can have a pint of lager in England for £4 or £5, and in Paris, 25 centilitres of beer, 25 centilitres, was €5.30. It doesn't seem worth it for just 25 centilitres. That might be my English brain, but a pint at £4 sounds much better to me. I did eat some fantastic mussels though, in a Belgian place. We also had an Indian one night. As I said earlier, I spent a day in Disneyland. It might just have been because it was Easter, but there were huge queues. You couldn't get on the best rides without an hour's wait at the very least. Even just a photo with Mickey Mouse included a not very convenient hour's wait. But people did actually wait that long, just for a photo with a man or a woman in a bloody costume. It's mental. We only went on a few rides, but one of them, the Hollywood Hotel I think it was called, was quite a shock. In the queue, we didn't really know what the ride was, but it was only a 15-minute queue, so we thought it was worth it. We walked in the hotel and it just looked like a tour around a haunted house. Then we were asked to get in an elevator, sit down and put on the seatbelt. We also had to check that it was fastened tight. At this moment my girlfriend started to worry a bit. She doesn't like rides too much. I tried to reassure her, saying it can't be that bad as there are kids with us. I was wrong. It was bad. The lift threw us up, it dropped, and then it threw us up again. The wall opened and we got a look at the whole park. We were very high up indeed. Sleeping Beauty's castle looked surprisingly small. My girlfriend ended up looking whiter than a ghost. Disneyland might be worth it if you go with kids on a weekday, if you're willing to wait in the queues, and if you don't mind eating fast food, but to me it just seemed a bit of a rip-off, and I couldn't imagine spending 3 or 4 days there. Speaking of rip-offs, Paris is full of con artists and scammers. We had to buy a ticket for the train to Disneyland and the machine was a bit of a mess. But a very helpful man came over and said he was from the ticket office and could help us. I couldn't see any identification or badge on him, just a card hung around his neck, but well, we had looked beforehand on the internet about the price and it said a return ticket should cost €30 for both of us. So it was a bit of a surprise that with the help of this man, the ticket turned out to cost €45. We were shocked and started to feel a bit suspicious, but not too much because we knew Disneyland wasn't close to Paris and €11 more or less per ticket didn't sound too bad, and to be honest it didn't really look like a scam until the man put his card to the machine and said, "I pay for you, it's okay." The tickets were in his hand and he was holding them for me to take, but his other hand was stretching out waiting for my money. He said again, "I pay for you, you give me the money." When I heard this I started laughing, realizing it was a scam. It was a bit suspicious before, but as long as he wasn't getting any benefit from it, I just didn't see the scam. I didn't mind getting some help with the machine either. As soon as he realized he wasn't getting anything from me, he left, without even a hint of protest. I mean, if I had paid for someone's tickets and they didn't give me the money back, I'd probably be a little bit fed up. This guy wasn't, he just left. I was laughing for quite a while after. His scam just wasn't good enough, and I was pleased I hadn't fallen for it. My girlfriend was a little bit angrier, but to be fair, he could have robbed me. He could have stolen my camera or even my wallet, and he didn't. We ended up waiting in line at the ticket office, and the woman there gave me a ticket for €8, which I could use all day to Disneyland and back and throughout all Paris. It was the first time someone had put serious time and effort into trying to take my money. There is also another scam growing in popularity. At the Eiffel Tower, a black man with a string in his hand came up to me speaking English as I was walking by the lawn towards the tower. He wanted me to stop and speak to him. I didn't. I just laughed and continued, but he grabbed my arm. I wrestled it off him, but others might stop and hear his story. I look like I speak English. That's the problem. I also look like a tourist, but everyone does in those places. At the Sacré-Cœur, however, I had a plan. I saw the man look at me and start to walk towards me as I was climbing those huge, steep steps. He said, "Hey, stop, man, stop." And I spoke a few words of my own special made-up language, which I reckon is somewhere between German, Polish and Finnish. Either way, it worked brilliantly. The man with the string in his hand stopped immediately and said, "Excuse me?" I repeated my sentence and walked on without a problem. Something similar had happened in Madrid too. This time a woman came up to me while I was walking down Gran Via at, I think, 2 a.m. in the morning. She came up to me and said, "Boy, you speak English, don't you? Come here." She also grabbed me, but me saying "no hablo inglés" in Spanish didn't convince her at all. I got away from her and she shouted at me, "I know you speak English, you are pretending." These tactics must work on quite a lot of people. I don't mind it too much, but you just have to be careful. These things can't sour a trip to Paris though. Seeing the Arc de Triomphe lit up at night on the wide street of Champs-Élysées, or the narrow streets of the Latin Quarter, the impressive dome at Galeries Lafayette and Notre Dame, of course. The Eiffel Tower, like many monuments of Paris, was lit up, but in the colours of the Belgian flag because of the terrorist attacks earlier. one interesting thing did happen one night in Paris. We were walking around Place de la Concorde, or whatever it's called, and suddenly 15, maybe more even, police vans, not cars, big vans, went storming around the roundabout and up the Champs-Élysées. You know, the sirens were whirring and screaming in the night, and the blue lights were flashing everywhere, and everybody around us just stopped. It was incredible, stopped. There was absolute silence, only the police vans whirring away, but everyone stopped, and there was this huge tension in the air. I suppose that's what you get when you're kind of reminded all the time of what had happened in Brussels with all the Belgian flags everywhere and what is happening around the world. But it was absolutely incredible, that moment. Paris is an extremely photogenic city anyway, each street having beautiful houses and buildings. Houses, that is, not horses. It was lovely, really nice.